Imagine a game so ancient, it makes the Roman Empire look young, born in China maybe 3,000 years ago. Then it spread, to Korea, Japan. Still massive today.
Yeah, we usually call it Go from the Japanese name, but you'll hear Waikiki in China, Baduk in Korea. Same game, deep roots.
It's really something. And, well, you could say it's a two-player strategy game. Perfect information, like chess in that way. Everyone sees everything.
Sure, but that's kind of where the similarity ends. Go is different. The goal isn't checkmate.
Right. It's about scoring points. You do that by surrounding empty parts of the board territory and by capturing your opponent's stones.
Which involves a whole different way of thinking spatially. So for this deep dive, we're going to unpack the real basics, the fundamental rules, some starter tactics, drawing from the material we looked at.
Yeah, the aim is to give you a solid feel for how it's played and maybe, just maybe, why it's so, well, captivating after all this time.
Okay, let's get into it. The board and stones first.
Definitely. So the Go board, it's not squares. It's a grid of lines. And the key thing is the intersections where the lines cross. That's where the action happens.
And the standard size, like for tournaments, is huge. 19 lines by 19 lines. That's 361 points.
Wow, yeah.
But you also see 13 by 13 boards, 9 by 9s. Those are quicker games, great for learning.
And our sources even mentioned tiny 6 by 6 boards just to, get the absolute basics down super fast.
Exactly. The core rules, they work the same whatever the size.
Okay, and the pieces.
Yeah.
Stones, right.
Black and white.
Yep. Traditionally, black is slate. White is often this beautiful hamaguri shell. Simple, elegant.
And black always goes first. That's standard.
Always. And here's a crucial point. Once you place a stone on an intersection, it stays there. It doesn't slide around like a chess piece.
There's no moving. That changes everything.
It really does. Strategy becomes about placement, about connection, about the shapes you build over time, not repositioning.
And you have, enough stones to cover the board, theoretically.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. A standard set has about 181 black, 180 white. More than enough for even a full 19 by 19 game.
Okay, so how does a game actually, proceed, turn by turn?
Super simple rhythm. Black places one stone on any empty intersection, then white places one stone. Back and forth. That's it. One stone at a time until basically both players feel there aren't any more useful moves to make. Any moves that gain points or significantly change the situation.
So you could just stop placing stones.
You can choose to pass your turn. And if both players pass one after the other,
The game's over.
usually, yeah. In official games, 2 consecutive passes ends it. Casually, you might just agree, okay, looks like we're on here.
Right, game's over. How do we know who won? Scoring time.
Right, you count up points. It's mainly 2 things plus 1 extra.
Okay, what are they?
First, territory. Those
Yeah.
empty intersections you've completely walled off with your stones. Each empty point inside is a point.
Got it. Territory. What else?
Second, prisoners. Any of your opponent's stones you captured during the game. Each captured stone is usually worth a point. You keep them aside.
Okay, territory plus prisoners. And you mentioned your own stones.
Ah, yes. Depending on the scoring rules, Japanese rules, for instance, you primarily count territory and prisoners. Chinese rules often involve counting your stones left on the board plus your territory. The end result is usually very similar, but the counting method can differ slightly. Let's stick with territory and prisoners for simplicity, as many sources do.
Okay, territory and prisoners. And there was something else, an extra bit.
Komi. Remember, black plays first? That's a small advantage.
Ah, right.
So to balance it out, white usually gets extra points added at the end, typically 6.5 points.
6.5. Why the half?
Clever, isn't it? It prevents ties. With that half point, someone has to win under normal rules. Makes white's job viable.
Makes sense. Okay, capturing stones seems really important then for points and, well, strategy. How does that work? We need to talk about liberties, right?
Exactly. Liberties are fundamental. Think of them as breathing room for your stones.
Breathing room.
Yeah, the empty intersections directly next to a stone or a connected group of stones. Horizontally or vertically adjacent, not diagonally.
Okay, empty spots touching the stone.
Right. And every stone or group of connected stones needs at least one liberty touching it to stay on the board. If it has 0 liberties, it's suffocated.
So a stone just plopped in the middle of the board. It starts with 4 liberties, the 4 adjacent empty spots.
Correct. But put it on the side, the edge of the board. Now it only touches 3 empty points.
Only 3 liberties. And in a corner.
Just 2. Which tells you something important right away. Stones near the edge, and especially in the corners, are naturally easier to surround, more vulnerable.
Okay, So how do you actually capture?
You capture a stone or a whole group of connected stones
Uh-huh.
by filling up all of its liberties with your own stones. The moment the last liberty is filled,
Poof. Off the board.
poof! Exactly. They're removed and they become your prisoners. Points for you.
And if stones are connected, like touching each other,
Good question. Connected stones of the same color share their liberties. They act like one larger unit. So if two stones are connected, you have to surround the whole shape they form, fill all the liberties touching that combined shape to capture them both.
so connecting makes your stones stronger, harder to capture.
Definitely. Much harder. And there's a term you'll hear all the time. Atari.
Atari.
It means a stone or a group is in immediate danger. It has only one liberty left, one more move by the opponent, and it's gone. It's like being in check, sort of. A warning.
Okay, Atari means danger zone. Now, can you just place a stone anywhere? Are there illegal moves? You mentioned something about suicide.
Huh. Yes, the suicide rule. Generally, you cannot make a move that leaves your own stone, or the group it just joined, with 0 liberties immediately after you place it.
So you can't just place a stone into a spot where it's instantly captured.
Not usually. Unless
Mm-hmm.
that very move simultaneously captures one or more of your opponent's stones.
Oh. So if placing my stone removes the last liberty of an adjacent enemy group, even if my stone ends up with no liberties itself initially, it's legal because the capture creates space.
Precisely. The capture happens first, freeing up liberties so your stone survives. You can't just throw your stones away pointlessly, but you can make a suicidal-looking move if it results in capturing the opponent.
That's a neat distinction. And what about playing inside enemy territory? Like if they've mostly surrounded an area?
Totally allowed, and often very important. You might play inside hoping to build your own group there that can survive, or just to disrupt their territory. You're never technically forbidden from playing on an empty point unless it's immediate suicide without a capture, or violates the rule we'll get to.
Okay, makes sense. So we talked about connected stones being stronger. Let's formalize that a bit, the connecting rule.
Yeah, it's simple but vital. Stones of the same color right next to each other, horizontally or vertically again, are connected. They form a single chain or group. Diagonals don't connect.
And we already said these connected stones share their liberties.
Right. All the liberties touching any stone in the group count for the whole group. This sharing is what makes them stronger. If one stone is in Atari,
You can play next to it, connect another stone.
and suddenly the group might have, say, 3 liberties instead of just one, you potentially save it from capture. Connecting is key for defense.
Okay, connecting helps stones survive. But is there a way to make a group permanently safe? Like unkillable?
Now we get to the heart of Go strategy, really. Yes, there is. It involves making eyes.
Eyes, like on a face.
Sort of. An eye in Go is a single empty intersection that is completely surrounded by your own stones. Think of it as a protected internal vacancy within your group.
A little empty spot inside my wall of stones.
Exactly. And here's the magic rule. A group needs at least 2 separate eyes to be considered alive and permanently safe from capture.
2. Why 2?
Because of the suicide rule again. If your group has 2 separate internal empty spots, eyes, your opponent can't capture you. To capture, they'd need to fill both those spots.
Right.
But to fill the first eye, they'd place a stone there. Okay. Now, to fill the second eye on their next turn, they'd be placing a stone into a spot completely surrounded by your stones, with no liberties for their stone, and, crucially, without capturing anything in that move.
Which is illegal suicide.
Bingo. They can't fill the second eye. So a group with 2 distinct real eyes inside it is immune. It's alive, even if the opponent surrounds the whole outside shape.
Wow. Okay, that's huge.
Yeah.
So one eye isn't enough.
One eye is vulnerable. If your group only has one internal empty spot, the opponent can eventually play into that spot, often as the very last liberty, and capture the whole group. 2 eyes are the benchmark for unconditional life.
The sources we saw had pictures of this, right? Showing groups with 1 eye versus 2.
Yeah, visually it makes sense. You see, the 1 eye group is still precarious, but the 2 eye group just looks solid, safe.
So a massive part of the game must be trying to build shapes that can make 2 eyes.
Absolutely central. Creating eye shape or eye space is what players strive for constantly. And denying your opponent the ability to make 2 eyes in their groups, that's equally important. It's this dynamic of life and death that's so core to Go.
Life and death.
Yeah.
Intense. Okay, one more big rule. This one sounds a bit weird. The ko rule.
Yeah.
Ko.
Ko. It means eternity in Japanese, apparently. It's there to stop a very specific kind of infinite loop.
An infinite loop. How?
Imagine a situation where you capture a single stone. Let's say you, playing black, capture one white stone. Now, if white could immediately play back into the exact spot you just emptied and capture your single black stone back.
And then I could capture his stone back on my turn.
Exactly. You could just go back and forth capturing the same single stone forever. The board position would just repeat endlessly.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pointless.
Yeah.
So the co-rule stops that.
It does. The rule says, if you capture a single stone, your opponent cannot immediately recapture that stone on their very next turn. If doing so, would return the board to the exact position it was in just before your capture.
So they have to wait or do something else.
They have to place somewhere else on the board first, just for one turn. This move elsewhere is called a co-threat.
A threat.
Usually, yeah. They'll make a move somewhere else that forces you to think, uh-oh, should I respond to that or should I finish this co-fight? Let's say white just had a stone captured in a co. White must play elsewhere the co-threat. Now, black has a choice.
What's the choice?
Black can either respond to white's threat on that other part of the board, or black can ignore the threat and play a stone into the co-spot, filling it, ending the co-capture threat there permanently.
But if black responds to the threat elsewhere?
Then, on white's next turn, white is now allowed to recapture the co-stone because the board position changed in between.
Okay, so it forces a move elsewhere before the immediate recapture is allowed. That leads to co-fights.
Precisely. These back-and-forth battles where you're weighing the value of winning the co against the threat your opponent made somewhere else. It adds this layer of calculation across the whole board.
And these switches can happen anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Center, side, corner, wherever that specific single stone recapture pattern might emerge.
Fascinating. It stops loops, but adds complexity. Okay, I think we've hit the main rules now. Placing stones, liberties, capture, eyes for life, ko for loops, and scoring with territory, prisoners, and komi.
That's the core machinery of Go, yeah. And as you can probably guess, even though those rules are, well, relatively few.
The way they interact must be incredibly complex.
Oh, unbelievably so. The strategic depth is just immense. The sources hint at this, of course.
Yeah, they mentioned that basic idea for opening moves. Corner, then side, then center.
Right, because corners are easiest to make territory in. You only need 2 walls. The edges of the board help you. Sides need 3 walls. The center needs 4. So you start in the corners usually.
Efficiency, in
Yeah.
a sense. And they talked about connection and separation.
Fundamental. Keep your own stones connected to make them strong. Try to cut your opponent's stones apart. Isolate them. Make them weak and easier to attack.
And then these deeper ideas. Life and death we touched on with eyes. Trying to make your groups live, kill the opponent's groups.
Exactly. And balancing making secure territory versus building influence groups that don't enclose much space yet, but sort of radiate power across the board, affecting future fights.
And one more term they mentioned, sente.
Sente, initiative. Having sente means your move forces your opponent to respond locally. You dictate the flow of the game. Giving up sente means they get to play where they want. It's a crucial strategic advantage to maintain the initiative.
Controlling the tempo. Interesting. So for anyone used to other games, the way value isn't tied to pieces, but emerges from just placement and connection. That's a real shift.
It really is. There's no queen or rook, just identical stones whose power comes purely from their position in relation to others.
Okay, so we've really dug into the fundamentals, haven't we? Placing stones, how liberties work, capturing why those 2 eyes are critical for survival, and the co-rules stopping endless fights. Plus the scoring territory, prisoners, komi.
Yeah, that covers the how to play part, and hopefully gives a sense of why it's more than just placing stones.
Absolutely. It's that amazing contrast, isn't it? The rules themselves, you can explain them pretty quickly. They seem simple.
Deceptively simple, but then the strategic possibilities that emerge from them are just vast, astronomical, really.
It really makes you think, how can such a minimal set of rules generate that kind of complexity? It's quite profound.
It is. And endlessly fascinating. It's why people dedicate their lives to it.
Well, maybe this has piqued your curiosity enough to, actually try it. Our sources mentioned online, Go servers are everywhere now. Easy place to find a game, give it a whirl.
Definitely worth a try. Who knows? Could be the start of your own deep dive.